It is funny, isn't it? The games we play, the little scenes we act out for the sake of some unseen audience in the small hours of the night. This is Jade Singer Presents, showcasing short stories from all over Equestria and beyond. But first, a public service announcement. Let me tell you a story about llamas. It will be like every other story you've ever heard about llamas. How they are covered in fine scales, how they eat their young, and how, at the end of their lives, they hurl themselves over cliffs to drown in the surging sea. Every story you hear about llamas is the same. The poor, doomed baby llama getting chomped up by its intemperate parent. A massive tide of scaly llamas falling in a great, majestic herd into the sea below. Badass llamas smoking cigars and painting their scales in jungle camouflage. Because you've seen this story so many times, it sometimes shocks you to see a llama in real life. The llamas you see don't have scales, so you doubt what you see, and you joke with your friends about those scaly llamas, and they laugh and say yes, llamas sure are scaly, and you forget your actual experience. Our first story, which has nothing to do with llamas, is Love in the Frozen Wastes by Mr. Album 321.
Such a lovable snow house. The first thing Akan saw when he woke up was his wife, Umak, changing the baby. The seal oil fire had burned out, but his eldest son, Kitarak, began to strike the flint to heat the small space again. Akan yawned and stretched, letting loose his black and unkempt mane. Umak scoffed and threw a clean diaper at him. "Lazy bones," she chided. "You should have been up an hour ago." Akan merely smiled. "I was having a good rest," he said. "Now I can hunt for a longer time." "And be late at home," Umak retorted, "and miss all the Akturak, and come home empty-handed, again." "When have I ever failed you?" Akan said as he leaned over and rubbed his nose against hers. She pushed him away, her blush small but noticeable. He stood up and dressed in his heavy hide atihi, took a finely crafted harpoon from the nearby rack, slung it onto his back, and broke open the snow that was used to seal the front entrance for the night. Although it was still late to midwinter, the snow and the clouds reflected and refracted the light back and forth to such an intensity that anyone else would have called it a bright morning, despite the tiny sliver of the sun that sputtered fitfully along the horizon's edge. Akan reached for a pocket on the outside of his atihi and pulled out a small piece of hide with 2 wide slots cut out of them. He put the hide over his eyes, the slits filtering the light so he would not be blinded by the glare that he knew would increase as the day would wax and wane. What little day there still was in these northern climates. "Appa!" Kitarak called as Akan stepped out onto the snow. "When can I go hunting with you?" Akan smiled. He turned back to the snow house's entrance, where his son waited. "Arga, you have asked that for the 15th day in a row," he said. "And I have told you no, you are too young still. Now let me tell you the real reason why I need you here." Akan pointed to the snowy plain in front of them. "Out there are creatures that help us survive. The Alegraq, the Ivik, and the Achvik, and many more that we sing about in the songs of our ancestors. There is also the Nanok. What do you think would happen if the Nanok came to our door? Would he say, 'Hello, Kitarak, how are you?' He would not." Akan pointed to the rack inside the snow house, where a smaller and sharper harpoon sat. If the Nanok pokes his black nose into our den, I need you to protect your Akka, he said in a serious voice, because there is no one else who will do so. Gitarak looked down, feeling the weight of responsibility. He remembered the stories his father told of the white Nanok and the many times the hunter would underestimate him and fall victim to his claws and his strength. Akaun smiled and brought his son's face back up to him. Do not worry, Akaun said. Keep the Nanok away, and someday you will be old enough to come with me. Gitarak's face beamed with pleasure at that. Appa, can you sing us a song? Sing us an old song, one of our ancestors. Appa needs to go hunting, Umak shouted from inside the snow house. Akaun laughed. All right, I will sing one song, one that our ancestors themselves wrote, he exclaimed. He stood up, put his hoof over his heart, and stared at the sky as he began to croon in a soft baritone. The flags, they flew on towers stretched high. Along the ground, the fighters did strike. Within the hills, the ptarmigan cries. The fish wiggled from the death grasp of pike. Along the ground, the fighters did strike. Scurried with worry, the lemmings did go. The fish wiggled from the death grasp of pike, under the ever-present threat of snow. Scurried with worry, the lemmings did go. The light disappeared at the summer's eclipse. Under the ever-present threat of snow, water doesn't flow from the winter's cold lips. The light disappeared at the summer's eclipse. Insects would swarm at the equinox's heat. Water doesn't flow from the winter's cold lips. The caribou did run with thundering feet. Please, says the lover, won't you stay? Within the hills the ptarmigan cries. I have no choice, says the hunter at bay. The flags, they flew on towers stretched high. Akaun kissed his son in the nose and went to the side of the snow house, where the mukluks were kept. He pulled one over each hoof, using his teeth to tie the Uruk-hide boots tight onto his legs. He stood back up and trotted out across the pure white landscape, bringing out his harpoon to test the snow in front of him as he ran. Akaun ran across the snow as he reached the shoreline. No one who saw what he saw would have seen the point at which the ice replaced the ground, but he saw it, and he immediately slowed his pace. He clambered up one particularly big ice floe and cast his gaze around him. The ice was still, but Akaun could feel the grinding of the floe beneath his hooves. The early months were always chaotic. The ice wanted to move, but there wasn't enough melted water to make room for each floe to move where they wanted to move. It made for a deceptive landscape, calm on top, but hell on bottom, and crossovers between the two occurring more often than not. Akaun plotted as safe a route as he could from his point and jumped down, hopping from floe to floe with the care and speed of a mountain goat. His mukluks kept his hooves warm, but allowed him to feel the slightest shift of the frozen ice underneath him. He spotted a small, almost unnoticeable round hole, about a centimeter or so in diameter, affixed strangely atop a small dome-like structure. Akaun recognized the hole and what it meant. He quickly felt for wind, settled downwind of the hole, and waited. The wait was very long. The sun vanished from the horizon, the glare dimming to a pale, deep blue. Still Akaun waited. As the light began to fade entirely, he heard a sound from the hole, a rasp, a breath, and the slosh of water. Akaun leaped forward and plunged his harpoon into the hole. He held onto the shaft as a small creature bucked and thrashed inside the small tunnel underneath the dome of ice. Akaun felt its struggles fade almost as soon as they started. It was a solid and well-aimed hit. He put his back into lifting the creature up through the dome, kicking and breaking the ice so he could hoist the thing onto it. It came up slowly from its breathing hole. It was an aligrarak, a young bearded seal. Why it was without its mother, Akaun didn't know. He knelt by the seal and put his front hooves together in prayer. Koyana alirarak. Ovakotesisukliatak, he whispered, before he dislodged the harpoon from the seal's skull and proceeded to slit the animal open and gut it. He took great care with the stomach. He remembered when he was a young colt and he plunged his hoof into the stinging gastric acid by accident. He left the guts on the ice except for the liver, picked the carcass up, and quickly trotted for home. The ice plus the weight of the dead seal made travel difficult, but it was nothing he couldn't handle. He breathed a sigh of relief when the shoreline appeared. He quickly dashed for home, his thoughts on the interested look his son Kitarak's face would have as he showed him how to cut the choice meat from the bones, and also on the strong and firm hooves of Umak through the long winter's night.
That was the author himself reading, by the way, and thanks to Lestia for that. I am not going to try and pronounce Inupiat. And now for some soothing music.
Forced to live in mobile homes on reservations. Your people will wear cardigans and drink highballs. We will sell our bracelets by the roadsides. You will play golf and enjoy hot hors d'oeuvres. My people will have pain and degradation. Your people will have stick shifts. The gods of my tribe have spoken. They have said, do not trust the pilgrims. And for all these reasons, I've decided to scalp you and burn your village to the ground.
That was exactly the opposite of the music I requested. Does that sound like 10 minutes of smooth jazz to you? How is it possible to misread instructions so completely? I'm going to need to wash this down with something. Enjoy our last story, Cool Jazz by Aolo. It's strange. Usually when a new genre of music becomes popular, It's either Rainbow Dash or Pinkie Pie who embraces it first. Rainbow Dash if the music is cocky and aggressive, and Pinkie Pie if it's a style of music you can dance to. But this genre is different. It is aggressive, but not the kind of hot-headed aggression that Rainbow Dash likes. Instead, it's an anger towards restrictions, towards the limit of music and mind. And you can dance to it, but it doesn't have the same regular four-to-the-floor beat that Pinkie enjoys. Instead, it employs a complex, syncopated rhythm, and your movements becomes very much a dialogue with the performer. I've come here several nights, and I've heard the same melody being played slow as a dirge, or wild as fire, depending on the mood of the crowd. There's math in this kind of music. It's basically an entire genre made out of applied algorithms. Maybe I'm the only one who enjoys the music on this level. Even the performers seem more focused on intuition than anything else. These aren't math professors after all. They are artists. The trombone player is an earth pony, yet he handles his instrument with all the grace of a unicorn. That piano player, lightly augmented with what looks like a fork at the end of each hoof, plays around with the trombone player's melody, without so much as a nod. Like the two ponies were of the same mind, they switch roles with the piano providing the main melody and the trombone player harmonizing around it. A young mare is playing double bass along with this. I notice that her notes are stiff and precise compared to the others, without the same spontaneity or playfulness. Yet, I think I like her the most. She isn't fighting for attention like the other two ponies are, or going off on her own weird tangent like the drummer is. Instead, she seems to wait for the precise moment when she knows the deep tones of her instrument will be the most effective, and she provides precisely the texture the rest of the band needs. I can't help but be reminded of my own role as one of the bearers of the elements. I'm neither the most honest, nor the most generous, nor the most playful, nor loyal, but I am the one able to recognize the strengths of the other elements, and, hopefully, channel their individual strengths into a greater whole. I let my mind wander. This is what I like about this kind of music. It provides a soundtrack for your own daydreams. The unfermented grape juice I ordered sits untouched in front of me. I guess I could have just walked in and sat down on a table without ever ordering anything, but while I am a bit of an awkward geek, I do have some clue about social faux pas, which is to say, I've read a book about it. It's as if the drink you order is the entrance fee, which explains why they are so expensive. It isn't the thing you order that's important. You're investing in what could possibly turn out to be a great night out. It's a bit like the practice of tipping. I admit, I haven't quite gotten the hang of it yet. Ponies thought I was being rude or cheap when I paid the exact amount, when I was simply unaware that there was an invisible fee involved in getting service. Since I'm lost in thoughts, I don't notice when a stallion walks up to me. Tall, dark, handsome. He has every quality that the leading pony in the detective movies which use this kind of music as its soundtrack should have. He smiles a disarming smile at me, which I awkwardly return. "And what is a charming young mare like yourself doing in this sort of place, all by herself?" he asks. "Oh, just enjoying the music," I reply. "Shall we dance, then?" he asks, then does a little polite bow. He's not a noble pony, yet he does act like one. I must admit, feel kinda trapped. I have read books on this, but at some point, pretty much all of those leaves you with some variation of, "You're on your own, girlfriend." I guess this simply is an area of social interaction where you can't map things out, because it deals with emotions that don't respond well to diagrams. I agree to his suggestion, and we trot towards the dance floor. The music hits us like a wave, and he takes the lead, moving us through the dance floor in a simple pattern. I follow along with him half a beat behind. I must admit, I've never been out here before. I've only studied the dancing ponies from a distance. But practice proves theory, and I find myself getting in the groove, as it were. I do wonder about the neurological process that allows us to move to music this easily. I doubt even the drummer knows exactly when the next beat is going to hit, yet we can all follow along. Some better than others. I'm reminded of the concept of mirror magic, the weak aura around a unicorn's horn that activates both when a unicorn performs magic and when she sees another unicorn use her magic. There's still research to be done, but the implications are fascinating. It's like ponies were made to form communities, made to be together and learn from one another. The music speeds up. The grey mare is working frenetically to keep up with the drummer's wild outburst. I gave them a taste of my own homemade dance moves, and my stallion friend looks very amused. For a second there, I thought I'd made a fool of myself. Then I remember the entry I read in the Encyclopedia of Made-Up Words about the term adorkable, and I smiled back at him. The music slows down again into a mournful 1-2-3-1-2-3 rhythm, and we break out into a slow waltz. "Say, what's your sign?" he asks me while dancing. "Oh, I don't believe in astrology," I reply. "Really? I have my doubts myself, but you never know about these kinds of things." "Oh, of course you can know. There's scientific research." He hushes me. "Can't the science wait?" he asks, "just for one night?" I'm proud of many things in life. Defeating discord, giving Luna a chance at redemption, overcoming my social anxiety to find friends that care about me. But most of all, I'm proud of my very humble scientific contributions. My paper on transmogrification has 36 citations. Not much in the grand scheme of things, but I read the research my paper helped inform with glee. Ponies I admire, having actually read my work, not because I asked them to, or because I was famous, but because the ideas I put forth were worth investigating. I think I skipped around town the entire day with a smile that could rival Pinkie Pie's when I found out. Can the single most reliable source of knowledge there is wait for just one night because a dark, handsome stallion asks me to? Yes, I suppose it can. He offers me his hooves. I press my own hooves against them, and we rise to form an arc. This dance is a little more complex than the other ones, but I quickly get the hang of it. The basic pattern is forward, back, left, right, and then a turn, which he telegraphs in advance by leaning to the side of the direction he wants to go. The music speeds up again and changes from 3/4 time to 7/8 as each of the musicians takes turns to impress the crowd with an energetic solo. It throws my rhythm off, and I notice with some surprise that I'm exhausted. I must have danced harder than I realized. We move off the dance floor to a quiet space at the side of the bar where the music isn't as loud. He asks if he can buy me a drink, but I reply that I'm not thirsty. I still have my half-finished glass of grape juice after all. His demeanor changes after that. He becomes much more cautious. There must be some nuance to this that I've missed. "Are you not having a good time?" he asks. "You've been very quiet all evening." "No, it's been wonderful," I say, "but I'm getting tired. Believe it or not, I'm not used to being up quite this late. I usually leave early." He smiles a reassuring smile. "So are you going to leave soon?" "Probably." "I could follow you home if you want me to, just to make sure you arrive safely," he says, and once again I get this feeling that there's this nuance I missed. "Oh, I'll be fine. You won't believe the things I've been up against." He puts a hoof on my shoulders, and he looks me in the eyes. At first, I figured he was suffering from an iridia, but on closer examination, I found that they were just very dilated. "Well, I've had a wonderful time as well. Goodbye." "Goodbye." The atmosphere feels charged. Maybe the heat and the smoke is getting to me. I entangle myself from him and walk out into the night. What did he mean about keeping me safe? Ponyville has one of the lowest crime rates in Equestria, to the point where a serial slipper thief became the town's most notorious criminal. The streets are nearly deserted, and the night around me is cool and dry. It feels very refreshing after being in a warm, smoky club for this long. How can ponies smoke those things anyway? Oh, I know why. Ingesting a compound by smoking is a very effective way of introducing it to the bloodstream, and from there the compound can quickly reach the brain and have its desired effect. It's a really effective delivery system, but carries with it a high change for psychological and semantic dependency. When I reach the library, I notice that Spike has already fallen asleep. He's just a baby dragon after all. I sneak in as softly as I can, and I feel my way to the bed. I toss and turn, and something about this night is bothering me, and I can't sleep. I have a couple of questions on my mind, and it won't let me rest until I've answered them. Luckily, I got the book I need close by. Ponies, a Field Guide, by Desert Mornings. I produce a night lamp from under my bed. I keep it there especially for nighttime reading. And I dive under the blanket. My eyes must have gotten slightly wider as I was browsing the book, and realization dawned on me. By Celestia! That guy was flirting with me! I exclaimed to myself. There is an ecstasy that marks the summit of life, and beyond which life cannot rise. And such is the paradox of living. This ecstasy comes when one is most alive, and it comes at a complete forgetfulness that one is alive. But that's a story for another time.